Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. My name is Tyler Cohen Wood, and I am cybersecurity expert at Inspired eLearning and also the media spokesperson. But how many of you guys have read a Jason Bourne novel? Most of you. How many of you guys have read Tom Clancy? Well, you know those cool gadgets that they would use for communications that no one knew what they were doing? Well, for 13 years, I worked for the Department of Defense and for an intelligence agency, and I actually was the one who developed those super cool gadgets that kept our operatives safe while conducting high-threat, high-risk missions in high-threat countries. So, and here's what I've learned in my experience that we need to incorporate into the cyber community. And that is, we need to start thinking like operatives. So, how many of you guys remember the good old days when we had just computers and they were connected? This was maybe even before laptops. I guess I just aged myself. Oh, dear. But you would not really bring your work home. You would have paperwork to bring home. And it was an IT security job. They would be the ones who would secure the network. And it wasn't really everyone else's job. Things are completely different today. Now, we have all kinds of connected devices into our networks. We have smart televisions, we have remote HVAC systems, we have cars that probably can somehow eventually connect into our network. We have smart refrigerators, smart beds for those Google employees who get to sleep at work. We also now use our personal devices, our personal smartphones, our personal tablets for work purposes too. And we have our laptops. We're always on the go. This is no longer an IT problem. And IT alone can't fix this. So what can we do? Well, let's look at this. So these are data breaches from 13 to 15, and 16 is even worse. Hackers have moved more from trying to use traditional hacking tools to break in to now attacking the employees and attacking you personally, professionally, attacking your family, and getting into your corporate network through you. And this is due to social media, them putting together a pattern of life on you. Now, operatives think different. So what I'm suggesting is a complete mind shift in how we think. So, again, everyone is a target. And we post things that we don't necessarily see as being sensitive information. We may post, location services. I just got coffee. Hey, just checked into RSA. But when you piece these things together, well, that's when it could become something that's not as sensitive. So it's kind of like a hacker playground now, where they can just go to social media, they can go to dating sites, they can, look at applications, they can build that flashlight application that has access to your contact list. So there's all kinds of things that we need to start thinking differently. And again, this is everyone's problem now. So how do we shift our mind and think like an operative, okay? So what do operatives do? They prepare for every mission that they go on. They know all potential issues, and if there's something they don't know, they have backup plans for everything. So how can we do this? Well, we need to think like operatives. We need to have very good, repetitive, mandatory education programs from the intern, any contractor connecting into your network, all the way to the executives, And we need to repeat these programs. So it's not just you're doing a training class because you have to, and you're like, okay, this is boring, next, and then you just take the test. You have to be engaged. And this is what operatives do. They go over the mission. They learn everything about the territory, everything about what they're doing, and that's what we need to do too. And this is not only going to protect our corporate interests, it's going to protect our family and ourselves too. So one of the other things that operatives do is they're paranoid. They're really, really paranoid. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that we become completely paranoid, schizophrenics, looking over our shoulder every second. But what I am suggesting is that we look at the things that we're putting out there on the internet. And we look at our posts as a whole, and we see what we may be giving away. We may not know. We may be putting out EXIF data. I've heard I have some terrible stories I could tell you when I'm not on the clock, but about people who didn't realize this and ended up getting into some pretty serious trouble. So we need to be a lot more paranoid in how we think. And look at our social media. Have social media policies. Have a buddy. Have someone who helps you go through and say, hey, you know what? You might have thought that those couple of things you posted were innocuous, but when you put them together, that's pretty sensitive corporate information, or that's something that could give away some pretty serious stuff about your daughter. That's not good. So I used to be a really nice person. I did. I was nice. And I was always kind of afraid. I was one of those people who, if I saw someone walking down the halls, without the badge, not when I was in Intel, but when I was started off in the private sector, and I would try to kind of help them because I'm a nice person. Well, a few years later, I went on a response, and this company just got thrashed, completely hacked. And they said to me during the interview, I said, well, what happened? They said, well, this really nice guy, he came in with a suit, and he told us he had just started. Well, HR didn't know him, but he was really nice and really smart, and he was our new engineer. 3 people in the company showed him the server room that he was going to be working in. One person, and they would have gotten him in, they just didn't have access. One person not only gave him access, but gave him her password and said, go to town. So you wonder what happened here. So now I'm very paranoid. If I see someone without a badge or without the proper credentials, or someone that I don't know, I question them. Now, this turns out to be kind of a problem if it's a 3-star general that has just started at your agency and you're asking for his credentials. But anyway, you want to be paranoid, and you want to really be that strong, confident person. All right, so here is a challenge. This is an operative I've known forever. This guy is like the special forces of special forces. John Doe, we'll call him. Now, he's been trained in everything you can possibly imagine. He's conducted so many missions, and he said to me, he started a new company, and he said, you can't find me online. There's no way. And I said, really? Oh, you're going to challenge me. So what I had his name and kind of the new company that he had worked for. Now, I suspected he had social media accounts, maybe in a different name, because a lot of special forces operatives do that. So I'm like, well, this guy is thinking like an operative. He's trained, so maybe I'm not going to find anything about him. But I knew I was going to find things on him. So what did I do? I started with the lowest hanging fruit. So I Googled him. I saw where he worked. He worked for one of those small companies that has the pictures and the bios of all the important people in the company. Of course, his was there. There was EXIF data, but I chose to take a different route. So what I did was I took that picture, easiest thing in the world, popped it into Google image search. What did I find, Mr. Operative? So I found an online dating site where he was using a different name. And it was, I won't actually repeat the name, but it was Sexy Special Operative, some bunch of numbers. So from there, I was able to gather more information about him. So I now had a username that he was using. He says in his dating profile, he has photographs, and he says, "No one ever thought that I would become so successful making it out of this teeny town." Well, turns out that teeny town had one high school. You know what? I got his yearbook. I called his old principal or one of his old teachers who knew him and was like, "Yeah, sure." So I didn't tell him that part. I found some other things too that I won't mention here. But he also says, every Thursday I'm at this bar. Okay, that's a way to find him. And he puts photos. He says, "I want someone to share my beautiful new house with me." Well, this happened to be a dating site that allowed EXIF data. I could have gone to Zillow, but I wanted to use the EXIF data because it's more fun. So, was John thinking like an operative? This is a trained 30-year operative. And I was able to find also under his other username all kinds of blogs. This guy was a skydiving fanatic. He would talk about it constantly, post all kinds of pictures. I was able to get his friends, find his social media, which strangely enough had no privacy settings whatsoever. It was completely open to the public under his Special Forces sexy man, name. And his politics, his family, his friends, the schools that he attended, work location, and he even on one blog posting, I don't know if it was a mistake, I don't know what it was, but he posted a password accidentally. And you know what? I didn't try it, but I suspect that password would have worked in other areas. So what could I have done here? I got him. I could have sent him a very sophisticated spear phishing email or something on social media, saying, "Hey, 50% off skydiving equipment," or something like that, and he may have clicked on it. He probably would have. So here's the important takeaway. This is a trained operative who thinks like an operative, but he forgot. We can't do that. Not anymore. We need to really think very hard about everything we do. And the good thing is, there's always a loophole. So we're not perfect individuals, and that's why we have teams. That's why we buddy up with someone and we say, "Hey, Brian, can you look through my social media and see if there's anything that, could get me in trouble?" And Brian would say, "Tyler, really, you want me to sit and parse through like 80,000 pictures of your dog and horse? Really?" But that's what you want to do. You want to get your friends to help you, and you want to have this operative mindset. You want to be paranoid. Because again, I'm going to go back to that it is no longer only IT. We have to think like these operatives. We have to have these mandatory education programs. And I'm not just talking education programs where you click through and, you go to the test really quickly. I'm talking about new inventive programs that actually teach you your mission. They teach you the threats to posting too much on social media. They teach you the threats to having these Internet of Things devices connected.